up? Welcome back. Now then, when I first kicked off this here YouTube malarkey, I never would have thought I'd get to 5,000 subscribers. Not in a million years, but yeah, within the last sort of 2 or 3 days, I've passed the 5,000 subscriber mark, and more or less in parallel with that, passed the 1 million total views for the channel mark. So well over 5,000 subscribers now, well over 1 million views to the Bingley Wheeler channel. Crikey. So a heartfelt and sincere thank you to each and every one of you who has contributed one way or another to achieving those 2 milestones. And well, here's to the next 5,000 is all I can say, because it strikes me that a little bit of magic happens when you get 1,000 subscribers, then a little bit more magic happens when you get to 10,000. Not an awful lot in between, to be fair. So still plenty of work to be done. And weather's been absolutely pants from start to finish. But we have been promised all week cracking warm weather and sunshine for Saturday, Sunday. And I noticed this Thursday morning, so just a couple of days away from the weekend, it's changed again, it's pissing down again. So the opportunities to get out and ride and film are closing down rapidly as we enter into autumn. So I'm going to have to get my thinking cap on, because I've got to keep all you good people entertained with 2 videos a week, one way or another, and I can't always guarantee that they're going to be out and about on one of the bikes, the Super Meteor or the Pan European. So I'm going to have to be a little bit creative and innovative in my approach, but my undertaking to you is to do my level best to make the content meaningful, because the last thing that I want to do is to fall into the rut of uploading content on a purely perfunctory basis, which is a fancy way of saying there's no progress to be made for me by uploading shite just for the sake of it. So but I'm gonna try really hard to reconcile those 2 things, i.e. continue to produce 2 videos a week, and at the same time to do my level best to make sure that the content is meaningful, entertaining, and where appropriate, informative and useful for you. But still, thank you ever so much for those 2 landmarks. So I didn't know what to do today. If the weather hadn't been so utterly abysmal, I'd have gone out on one of the bikes and we'd have had a bit of a chat in the countryside on the bike about various bits and bats. But that's not going to happen. I don't mind riding in the wet, but I'm sure, like you, I don't particularly like getting the bikes filthy unless I have to, and the cameras don't like it, basically. So I'll have a new the next time I do a video of that kind out and about on the bike, it will be with an improved camera setup. So actually using a GoPro Hero 12 as the helmet camera and the Hero 10 as the on-bike camera. I did see all the hype around the DJI Osmo 4 Action, the new one, and I know it has a lot of advantages over the GoPro, but to my mind, well, number one, picture quality is not as good, and I am being very picky. I've got a fine eye for these things. The DJI Osmo Action 4, the picture quality is not quite to the standard of the GoPro Hero 12 once you've tweaked manual settings and stuck on an ND filter and the rest of it. Second, well, there's 3 reasons really. So second reason for stopping with GoPro is because I'm used to them. I'm used to the pispotical way they name and number the files. I've finally got my head around that. So I'm used to how they work, etc, etc. And the third thing basically for me is the audio. the audio setup that I have in helmet, which is basically a wired high quality Rode lavalier microphone inside the helmet, hardwired into the GoPro Media Mod. I have not found an audio setup which makes my speech audible and clear, if not sensible, and also brings in the engine noise of the bike, the exhaust tone and what have you, and it's the most perfect balance I've come across with any audio setup, and I'm not overly keen on the DJI Osmo 4 audio setup options. So I'll be doing that, and hopefully I'm going to try and shoot most of the content in 5.3K as opposed to 4K, and that should make a bit of a difference, particularly if I need to crop in to some of the video footage. So I'm not really going to talk about bikes here. It's just going to be a bit of an old copper's tale again. The ones I've done so far have been reasonably well reported upon by some of you good people out there. So without further ado, let me tell you about the time when I inadvertently became the Christmas Grinch. Yes, within the police force that I worked in, which is a very big, largely urban police force in the north of England, third biggest in the country outside of London, very big force, and had quite a few interested and high-profile jobs in my 30 years of service with that organisation. And one of them, sort of towards the end of those 30 years, was within an area of the force basically referred to as Operations Support. So not a territorial division, not a geographical location as such, but a force-wide support service covering things like communications, public order support, firearms support, horses, dogs, air support, National Police Air Service, helicopters, basically. That carry on, quite sexy stuff really in police circles, but widely regarded as such by a lot of those officers that aspired to serve in those portfolios. So rather more by accident than design, I ended up in that field of operations, and for a brief period, probably about 12 months or so, I had oversight of call handling and dispatch, which is basically all the calls, the emergency calls, the non-emergency calls, etc., that come into the force, and the command and control and dispatch that goes with it, which is a call comes in, it's assessed, it's triaged, and it gets a response from ordinarily a police officer, whether on foot, hey, not much of that anymore, or in a normal divisional patrol vehicle, or a response vehicle, or a firearms vehicle, whatever's appropriate in the circumstances. So I was sort of responsible for the operational management of all of that in the western area of the force, which would be the Bradford, Keighley, Kirklees, Huddersfield, Dewsbury, western side of the force, all those big conurbations. Hey, and very interesting job. I think I had about 155 staff, comprising of civilian support staff and some police constables and some police sergeants and some civilian supervisors, team leaders. Quite a broad spectrum of people and skills, for that matter. And this particular year, it were coming up to Christmas, and this is how I became known as the Grinch, or Mr. Grumpy Draws. That was my other nickname, Grumpy Draws. But we'll come to that another day. But basically, yeah, it fell to me to deal with a request from certain people who were down to work over the Christmas period, which on this occasion I wasn't one, but that'll be the exception, because in 30 years I probably worked 80% of all the Christmases over that time. So yeah, so anyway, it fell to me to arbitrate upon this entreaty from certain members of staff that wanted to work in the various control rooms across the force. Wanted to be able to wear casual clothes instead of uniform. Now, in the control rooms and the dispatch centres, the one on the western side, the one on the eastern side, and the one in the centre at headquarters, all wore uniform, and that uniform clearly identified the various skill sets which it was important to know. So, for example, who was a call handler, who was a qualified dispatcher, who was a team leader, who was a supervisor, who's got this skill set, who's got that skill set, who's a member of police staff, who's a police officer, who's a ranking police officer, all of that. And the reason that's important, obviously it's a disciplined service, the reason that's important is because in day-to-day operations, if something big drops on your lap and there's some sort of major incident that requires a dedicated gold, silver, bronze command unit to be set up, the commander and other key people who are steering that event need to know what the skill sets and responsibilities of individual members of staff are. So that's the reason that all staff in that sphere of operations wear uniforms of one sort or another. And obviously the police uniform is very, very different from the civilian staff uniform, because there's certain things you can ask, or rather mandate, coppers to do that you absolutely can't ask or mandate support staff to do. So that's fair dues, no issues. But I get this request over the Christmas period, and I think it was the Christmas week, so like Christmas and the New Year period, can we wear Christmas jumpers with Santa on, and you know, and Christmas puddings and reindeers and Rudolph and all of that, and basically wear civilian clothing like jeans and t-shirts and silly hats and all of that business. And I looked at this and I thought, well, hang on a minute, because your first thought's got to be contingencies, the operational efficiency of the department and therefore the force, and its ability to respond meaningfully to not only day-to-day demand but any exceptional circumstances that might present themselves in the form of a major incident, be that major public disorder, major crime, a terrorist attack of some description, all of those big issue things that can present themselves from time to time. So I was just thinking to myself, well, you know, it's Christmas, and at the time the biggest terrorist threat back then, and this is no secret, it was all over the news at the time, so it won't come as any surprise to anybody, the biggest terrorist threat back then in the earlier 2000s was from extreme religious groups, particularly Islamist groups. And of course that ongoing terrorist threat, which even in the background was at high level, becomes very much heightened over the Christian religious festival, which is Christmas, and to a certain extent New Year. So I'm thinking, well, I know what the rationale for having everybody in uniform is, and it's about having an effective response to major incidents of that nature. And here we are with a request to, shall we say, somewhat dilute that capacity over Christmas, at a time when actually the chances of getting some sort of major event like that, particularly a terrorist-related event, are actually higher. So I turned it down. Well, bugger me. Talk about unpopular. And so I became Force's most miserable bastard overnight. And I had entreaties from various people to sort of reconsider this decision. Now, what I ended up ultimately doing was I had to bang it up the chain of command, because so many representations then went behind my back and above my head, and again up the chain of command, saying, you know, look at this miserable bugger here, won't let us have a bit of fun over the Christmas period. So fair enough. Anyway, I mean, you know, the decision was upheld at the end of the day by the senior command in the force, which I would expect no less in those circumstances. It were a pretty rock solid argument, but some of the I had to laugh. Somebody quite senior, not a police officer, I hasten to add, but a senior member of police staff, sort of said to me, "Oh no, there won't be a problem, because what we'll do is and this is a typical example of a manager that, and obviously I'm not going to mention his or her name, that wouldn't be right, but a typical example of a manager not wanting to manage and a leader not wanting to lead, basically, because there's a difference between management and leadership, which I might come on to here and maybe on another occasion, but there's a big difference between managing and leading. But this individual sort of said to me, well, it'll be all right, because what they will do is they'll spend the tour of duty in the jeans and t-shirts and fancy hats and Christmas jumpers with puddings on and stuff like that, and Santa Claus and reindeers and what have you. They'll do that, and if we have a major incident, they'll have the uniform in the lockers, and they'll be able to get changed. And I couldn't believe it. And I thought, you are kidding me. I said, are you really telling me that if all of a sudden there is, for example, an active shooter in somewhere like a major shopping centre in Leeds or Bradford or anywhere else, that the response can afford to be delayed for 10 or 15 minutes while the entire communications and dispatch staff go and get changed? You know, Toro, you've got this terrorist event unfolding, and there's a threat to life and one thing. Oh, just a minute while I go change my Christmas jumper for something more appropriate. And I were absolutely flabbergasted. I think it's fair to say that my response was quite robust and vociferous, right to the point where this particular individual then went and basically complained further up the chain of command that I'd been dismissive and forthright, bordering on aggressive. Crikey, it's supposed to be a disciplined service. Yeah, just hang on. Oh, we've got a major incident. No, just hang on. It will be 10-15 minutes while we all get changed. I kid you not. And all it is really is it's just an example of some of the ludicrous things that can come out of some people's mindsets. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's malicious. I'm absolutely sure that for the best of intentions, albeit naive intentions, that people thought, it'll be a morale booster, let's have plain clothes in the communications rooms at Christmas. It'll lift spirits and generally improve morale, not a problem. Well, I get that completely and I understand it, but the flip side of that particular coin is that we then start parting company with our statutory responsibilities in terms of being able to respond effectively. Because if there is a major incident, what happens is they set up something called a gold command room. So there's a command structure in policing and in the military for that matter, and other organisations, you know, local authorities, fire services, ambulance services, called gold, silver, bronze. And basically gold is the strategic management of a particular incident. Silver's the tactical management, and bronze is the operational management. So what that basically means is your gold commanders, for big incidents, your gold commanders in the police will be chief officer rank, so assistant chief constable, deputy chief constable, or chief constable. But usually an assistant chief constable, because most of the bigger forces have quite a few of them, whereas there's only one deputy and only one chief ordinarily, and their equivalents in the Met, and it's a different rank structure at that level in the Metropolitan Police. But anyway, everywhere else, your gold commanders are going to be sort of at that level. Your silver commanders are going to be at sort of superintendent, chief inspector level, and your bronze commanders are going to be at roundabout inspector sergeant level. And your bronze commanders will normally be on the ground. Your silver commander will normally be in a silver command room, and your gold commander will be in a gold command room. But the gold commander, unlike the silver and bronze, may not be 100% engaged in that particular operation. It'll just depend on the particular demands at the time. But if it was something like a major terrorist event, you know, like I don't know, off the top of my head, something like an active shooter in the Alcoats Centre in Leeds, something of that nature, then it will be all hands to the pump, and those commanders, he or she, need to know when they get communications and dispatch support staff in their command rooms. They need to know who's who and what's what, who's a copper, who isn't, who's a supervisor, who isn't, who's a dispatcher that can engage in command and control and operate radios, and who isn't, and who's a call handler that can't do those things, etc, etc. So that's the rationale behind it. And alright, so I ended up being you know, the Force Grinch for this particular Christmas period, but I will stand by it. But it's an example really of how some people don't necessarily think beyond the confines of their own particular needs, expectations, and role as defined. They don't think outside of the bubble. They don't think worst case scenario. Well, you've got to think a worst case scenario. If you think a worst case scenario, then you'll never be caught with your pants down, will you? And that's the bottom line with it. Yes. So anyway, of course, it never happened, but because then everybody were mandated to rock up at Christmas wearing the normal uniform, it didn't go down right well. But you know, you've got to be able to argue your case, haven't you? So I just thought it's a little interesting tale. There are others that sort of always come back and remind me of the way in policing a lot of people don't think about what our ultimate responsibilities are and what we might be called upon to do, and what the best way of responding to that is, and don't factor it in. Because the majority of these major incidents, you know, they are spontaneous, they're not planned. I mean, there are things that you know about in advance and can plan for, and can write all sorts of contingencies into your operational plan. And the gold commanders can write their strategy, and the silver commanders can discuss their tactics, and the bronze commanders can implement those tactics and that strategy on the ground. If it's a planned event, that's fairly straightforward, because you might know about it weeks in advance. It might be a major sporting event, a big football match, or it might be a big public demonstration. But your stuff that tends to come from left field, the spontaneous stuff, particularly if it's something like a terrorist attack or large-scale public disorder with sometimes the involvement of firearms, you need to be able to respond to that in very, very short order indeed, and to be able to do so effectively. Otherwise, we're just letting everybody down, aren't we? So, that were that. So yeah, gold, silver, bronze. So yeah, and they have it in the military as well, because occasionally police forces work with the military, with special forces. I've had the privilege of working with special forces for a brief period, SAS in my time. Really, really interesting stuff, but that was all around exercises, not live play, all around planned exercises. And that happens all the time, and it's not a big secret, of course. But this gold silver command structure that they have is common to what we call partner service, or what called partner services and other blue light services. And so it can be like councils, local authorities, hospitals, fire services, ambulance services, all the rest of it have this structure, and at similar levels. In the military, your gold commanders in the military, if there were to be a combined operation, and I can't think of one that's happened in recent times, to be fair, 'cause it's a big thing. I mean, to get the police involved in assisting the normal day-to-day policing in the event of something really big unfolding requires the authority of a minister, a government minister. It's called MACP, Military Assistant to the Civil Power. You can see all this online. There's no secrets coming out here whatsoever. The military assistance to the civil power, and I can't remember one recently on any major scale, other than stuff like support in dealing with floods and bits and bats. But yeah, but they have their own gold, silver, bronze structure, and the ranks in the police and the military tend to match up. So, for example, your gold commanders, so an assistant chief constable in the police as a gold commander, his or her equivalent in the army would be a brigadier, because a brigadier is a 1-star general rank, 1-star NATO rank. Sometimes they're called flag ranks, more so flag ranks, more so in the Navy, really. But they are they're aligned along the NATO principle of 1, 2, 3, 4 stars, and in wartime 5 stars. If you know your history from Second World War, 5-star generals, but ordinarily 1, 2, 3, 4, and so your gold commanders will be from that pool of senior military officers. So yeah, it'd be a brigadier or above in the army. In the Navy, I don't think we'd ever call in the Navy to assist the police. I don't know, I doubt it, but if we did, it'd be a Commodore or above. And if it was in the Air Force, the RAF, it would be an Air Commodore or above. So they're the sort of first 1-star ranks, and that's how it works on that NATO system, and that's normally where gold commanders come from. So yeah, that's how the structure of the theatre of operations in terms of major incidents, either planned or spontaneous, maps out. And historically, it's been a very, very effective model, and it's been used effectively in an awful lot of situations, which have been resolved probably more quickly and more satisfactorily than otherwise they would have been. But not wearing Christmas jumpers. All right, I hope that tale was of some interest to you. I'm sorry it ain't bike related, but I'm struggling today with weather and one thing and another, so I just thought I'd come out, thank everybody for me 5,050 odd subscribers it is now, me 1.04 or 5 million views. I really appreciate it. Keeps me motivated, keeps me going, buys me the odd memory card for the cameras and one thing and another. Oh, and to thank those of you that have been kind enough to click that super thanks icon and give me a £1 or £2 for a pot of steam or a pint or whatever. Really do appreciate it. Okay, so that's it for today. Until the next time, ride safe, be kind, and I'll catch you soon. Ta-da!